The crown was still warm from the king's head when Juliet Harmon shoved it beneath the heavy velvet folds of her ball gown, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She had exactly 3 minutes before the guards realized their sovereign's most precious relic was missing from its display case in the grand hall of the Crimson Court. 3 minutes before every vampire in this god-forsaken underground palace started hunting for the thief stupid enough to steal from Lord Vaelrath himself, the Vampire King, who had ruled the Shadow Realm beneath New York City for the past 4 centuries. 3 minutes to get past the ballroom, through the marble corridors, up the obsidian staircase that led back to the human world above, and disappear into the safety of daylight, except the sun had set 2 hours ago, and dawn was still 8 hours away. Juliet forced herself to walk slowly, gracefully, like she belonged among these immortal predators in their silk and diamonds. Her own gown was a borrowed thing, stolen from a boutique she'd broken into just yesterday. Deep emerald velvet that matched her eyes, with a corset that cinched her waist and a skirt full enough to hide the platinum crown currently pressing against her thighs through layers of fabric. She'd pinned her dark auburn hair up in an elaborate twist, applied makeup with a trembling hand, and slipped past the court's entrance guards by pretending to be the +1 of some minor vampire lord who'd been too drunk on fresh blood to notice her. The Crimson Court threw these balls every month, opening their doors to both vampire nobility and select humans who'd earned their favor. Politicians, celebrities, the wealthy elite who didn't mind rubbing shoulders with the undead in exchange for power and protection. Juliet was none of those things. She was a thief, a con artist, and currently the most desperate woman in New York, because her sister was dying. Mara had been sick for 3 years now, some rare blood disease the doctors couldn't cure. The medical bills had crushed them both. Juliet had sold everything, worked 3 jobs, begged and borrowed until there was nothing left. Then she'd started stealing. Small things at first. Jewelry, cash, whatever she could fence quickly. It was never enough. Last week, Mara's doctor had given them the final timeline. 3 months, maybe less. Unless Juliet could buy her way into the experimental treatment that might save her. $2 million for a single chance at survival. The crown she'd just stolen was worth $50 million on the black market. Maybe more. Ancient vampire relics always were. Leaving so soon? The voice cut through her thoughts like ice through skin. Juliet froze, every muscle in her body going rigid. She didn't turn around, didn't breathe. The voice was male, deep and smooth like aged whiskey, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Old world European, maybe. The kind of voice that suggested centuries of education and power. The party is just beginning, the voice continued, closer now. She could feel him behind her, smell something cold and clean like winter air. It would be terribly rude to slip away without saying goodbye. Juliet turned slowly, keeping her expression calm even as panic screamed through her veins. She found herself staring up at the most beautiful and terrifying creature she'd ever seen. He was tall, easily 6.5 feet, with the kind of presence that made the crowded ballroom feel small. His skin was porcelain white, flawless and cold-looking under the chandelier light. His hair fell past his shoulders in waves of pure silver white, and his eyes were the color of fresh blood. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her annual rent, tailored perfectly to his broad shoulders and lean frame. Everything about him screamed ancient power and deadly grace. Juliet knew exactly who he was. She'd seen his portrait in every news article about the vampire courts, every society page that covered their mysterious gatherings. Lord Vaelrath Thorne, the Vampire King himself. I wasn't feeling well, Juliet managed, her voice surprisingly steady. Too much wine. Lying to me is unwise. Vaelrath tilted his head, studying her with those unsettling crimson eyes. I can hear your heartbeat from here, racing like a rabbit's, and you haven't touched a single glass of wine all evening. I watched you. Her stomach dropped. You were watching me? I watch everyone who enters my court. He took a step closer and Juliet fought the urge to run. Running would be useless. Vampires were impossibly fast. But you particularly. You don't belong here. Your clothes are expensive but ill-fitting. Stolen, I'd wager. Your makeup is well done but your hands are shaking. And you've been hovering near the artifact hall all night, pretending to admire the paintings while actually studying the guard rotations. Juliet's mind raced. Deny everything? Try to charm him? Neither option seemed viable when faced with a 400-year-old vampire king who could probably snap her neck without breaking a sweat. I should leave, she said quietly, starting to turn. His hand caught her wrist. Not painfully, but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away. His skin was cold as marble. You're not going anywhere, not until you return what you stole. I don't know what you're talking about. The crown of first blood. Vaelrath's voice dropped lower, taking on an edge that made her knees weak. The relic my line has guarded for 8 centuries. The crown worn by the first vampire king when he united the dark courts. You have approximately 90 seconds before my guards realize it's missing and lock down the entire palace. So I'll ask you once more, politely, return it. Juliet's throat went dry. She could feel the crown's weight against her leg, hidden in her skirts. If she gave it back now, he'd probably kill her for the theft. If she didn't, he'd definitely kill her when his guards found it. I need it, she heard herself say. The words came out desperate, broken. Please, I need the money. My sister is dying and I can't save her and I don't know what else to do. I'm so tired of watching her fade away and feeling helpless. So yes, I stole your crown. Kill me if you want, but I'm not sorry I tried. Vaelrath went very still. His red eyes searched her face, looking for something. The ballroom continued spinning around them, vampires and humans dancing and laughing and drinking, completely unaware of the drama playing out in their midst. Your sister, he said slowly. What illness? The doctors call it idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. Her body destroys its own blood cells. She's had every treatment they can offer. Nothing works. There's one experimental procedure, but our insurance won't cover it and I can't afford it. How much do you need? $2 million. Juliet laughed bitterly. Might as well be 2 billion. I'm a bartender who barely makes rent. I've been stealing for months and I'm nowhere close. Vaelrath's expression shifted, something almost like curiosity flickering across his perfect features. You broke into my court, infiltrated my ball, and stole one of the most heavily guarded artifacts in the vampire world because you're desperate to save your dying sister. Yes, that's either breathtakingly brave or monumentally stupid. Probably both, Juliet admitted. She could hear shouting now, distant but growing closer. The guards had discovered the theft. You should kill me quickly, I'd appreciate that. Instead of answering, Vaelrath pulled her against him with inhuman speed. One arm wrapped around her waist, holding her close enough that she could feel the unnatural stillness of his chest. No heartbeat, no breath, just cold, immortal power. What are you? Be silent, he commanded, and something in his voice made her obey instantly. Vampire compulsion, probably. She'd heard they could do that to humans, and hold on. The world blurred. Suddenly they were moving impossibly fast, the ballroom disappearing into streaks of color and light. Juliet buried her face against his shoulder, fighting nausea as he carried her through corridors at speeds that should have been impossible. She heard doors slamming, voices calling out, but none of it seemed to matter. Vaelrath moved like liquid shadow, untouchable and unstoppable. When the world finally steadied again, Juliet found herself in a massive chamber that could only be the king's private quarters. The walls were lined with books that looked ancient enough to crumble at a touch. A fire burned in an enormous hearth despite the summer heat above ground. The furniture was all dark wood and black leather, elegant and masculine. Tall windows showed the glittering underground cavern that housed the vampire city, a gothic nightmare of spires and bridges carved from living rock. Vaelrath set her down gently, then stepped back. Show me the crown. Juliet hesitated. They were alone now. If she refused, what would he do? But she could still hear guards searching the palace, their footsteps echoing through stone corridors. There was nowhere left to run. Slowly, she reached into the hidden pocket she'd sewn into her skirt's lining, pulling out the crown. It was smaller than modern crowns, more like a circlet really, made of platinum and set with rubies that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. The metal was warm, almost alive in her hands. Vaelrath stared at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, to Juliet's complete shock, he took the crown and held it up to the firelight. Do you know what this represents? He asked quietly. Power, money, my sister's life. It represents obligation. He turned the crown slowly, watching rubies catch the light. The first vampire king wore this when he swore to protect both the living and the undead, to maintain balance between our worlds, to never let bloodlust overcome honor. Every king since has worn it during their coronation, renewing that vow, his red eyes fixed on her. It's a symbol of service, not just authority. And you thought you could sell it to save one human life? One human life that matters more to me than anything else in this world. Juliet shot back, anger overriding fear. I'm sorry it's just a symbol to you, but to me it was hope. The only hope I had left. You misunderstand me. Vaelrath moved closer, still holding the crown. I'm not criticizing your choice. I'm impressed by it. You risked everything for someone you love. That's rare. Even among vampires, perhaps especially among vampires. We live so long that love often becomes diluted, meaningless. But you, human, with your brief little lifespan, you gambled it all on a desperate chance. Juliet didn't know what to say to that. Outside, the shouting was getting closer. Someone would find them soon. They're coming, she whispered. Your guards, yes, will you let them kill me? Vaelrath smiled for the first time, and it was like watching winter itself take human form, beautiful and deadly. No, I have a better idea. Before she could react, he lifted the crown of first blood and placed it gently on her head. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Power surged through her, ancient and vast, making her gasp. The rubies blazed with sudden light, casting red shadows across the chamber. She could feel the crown settling into place like it belonged there, like it recognized her somehow. Magic, old and deep, hummed through her bones. "What did you do?" Juliet demanded, reaching up to touch the crown. It felt impossibly right there, warm against her scalp. "I crowned you," Vaelrath said simply. "According to ancient vampire law, whoever wears the crown of first blood becomes queen of the dark courts, regardless of their species, status, or origin. The crown chooses its wearer, and I've simply honored that choice. That's insane. I'm a human. I'm a thief. I can't be a vampire queen, and yet you are." He gestured to the window, and Juliet turned to see the entire underground city beginning to glow. Lights were appearing in windows throughout the cavern, vampires emerging from their homes and towers, all of them staring toward the palace. "They can feel it. The crown's magic announcing its new queen to every vampire in my territory. Within the hour, every court in the world will know." "Why?" Juliet's voice cracked. "Why would you do this?" "Because I've been king for 400 years, Vaelrath said quietly, "and I've never seen anyone want something the way you wanted to save your sister. Pure, desperate love. No ulterior motives, no political games. Just raw human emotion. It's been so long since I felt anything remotely like that." He paused, red eyes searching her face. "And because the crown accepted it, I felt it the moment you touched it. The old magic recognized something in you. Courage, perhaps. Or honor. Whatever the reason, you're queen now. That comes with certain benefits." The chamber doors burst open. A dozen guards poured in, all of them vampire warriors in black armor, their pale faces twisted with alarm. They saw Juliet wearing the crown and froze as one. "My lord." Their captain stammered, a female vampire with ice-white hair pulled into a severe braid. "The crown, it was stolen. We searched everywhere." She stopped, staring at Juliet. "What is the meaning of this?" "Captain Lysandra," Vaelrath said calmly, "allow me to introduce your new queen. She attempted to steal the crown of first blood, and instead the crown chose her as its rightful wearer. As per ancient law, I've accepted its judgment." Lysandra looked like she wanted to argue, but vampire law was apparently absolute. She dropped to one knee and the other guards followed suit. "Your Majesty," Lysandra said through gritted teeth. Juliet felt completely unmoored from reality. This couldn't be happening. Queens didn't just appear because they stole the right crown. And yet here she was, wearing ancient vampire regalia while immortal warriors knelt before her. "Rizai," Vaelrath commanded, and his guards obeyed instantly. "Spread the word. We'll hold a formal coronation ceremony tomorrow night. Until then, the queen is under my personal protection. Anyone who questions her right to the crown answers to me directly." The guards filed out, shooting curious and suspicious glances at Juliet as they went. When the doors closed again, she rounded on Vaelrath. "I don't understand any of this. Why does the crown get to choose? Why would it choose me? And what does this mean for my sister?" "The crown was forged by ancient magic," Vaelrath explained. Gesturing for her to sit, she perched on the edge of a leather chair, acutely aware of the crown's weight on her head. "It's bound to concepts, honor, sacrifice, protection. It responds to those qualities in a person's soul. As for what it means for your sister," he smiled again, gentler this time. "The Queen of the Dark Courts has access to the royal treasury. $2 million is pocket change. You can save her." Juliet's eyes burned with sudden tears. "Just like that? You'll give me the money? It's yours by right now. You're queen. Half of everything I own belongs to you." Vaelrath sat across from her, studying her with disconcerting intensity. "But understand what you're accepting. This isn't charity. You wear the crown now, which means you have responsibilities. The vampire courts will expect you to fulfill your role. You'll need to learn our laws, our customs, our politics. You'll need to attend councils and settle disputes and represent our people. It won't be easy. I don't care how hard it is," Juliet said fiercely. "If it means Mara lives, I'll do whatever it takes. Even if it means staying here, living among vampires, binding yourself to this world." She hesitated only a moment. "Yes," Vaelrath nodded slowly, something like approval in his expression. "Then we have an accord. I'll arrange for your sister's treatment immediately, the best doctors, whatever she needs. In exchange, you'll remain here as queen and learn what that means." "How long?" Juliet asked. "How long do I have to stay?" "That depends on many factors. Vampire queens are rare. The last one died 3 centuries ago, and no crown has accepted a new candidate since. You could rule for a year or 100 years. The crown will release you when it decides you've fulfilled your purpose." 100 years. Juliet felt dizzy. "I'm human. I don't have 100 years. That could change, Vaelrath said carefully. If you wished it. Vampire queens have historically chosen to extend their lives through magic or transformation. But that choice is always yours. No one can force it. I'm not becoming a vampire. I didn't ask you to. He stood, moving to a desk in the corner and pulling out an ornate phone. I'm calling my personal physician now. She'll arrange your sister's transfer to our medical facility. We have resources that human hospitals don't. Vampire blood can heal many things when properly administered. Juliet watched him make the call, her mind reeling. This morning she'd woken up in her tiny apartment, desperate and hopeless. Tonight she was apparently the queen of every vampire in the world, with unlimited resources and a terrifying immortal king as her, partner? Co-ruler? When Vaelrath finished the call, he turned back to her. It's done. Mara will be brought here within the hour. My doctors will begin treatment immediately. I want to see her. I need to explain everything. Of course. But first, you should change. He gestured to her stolen ball gown. That's hardly appropriate for a queen. I'll have suitable clothes brought to your chambers. My chambers, the queen's suite, connected to mine through the private library. Vaelrath moved to a door Juliet hadn't noticed, pulling it open to reveal a passage lined with bookshelves. Beyond she could see another chamber, this one decorated in deep purples and silvers. You'll have privacy when you want it, but we should maintain some proximity. There will be vampires who challenge your right to the crown. They'll need to see that I support you fully. Juliet stood, the crown steady on her head despite her spinning thoughts. How many will challenge me? Difficult to say. Some of the older houses are traditional. They won't appreciate a human queen, regardless of what the crown says. But if they move against you, they move against me. And I've held this throne for 4 centuries by being very, very good at eliminating threats. The casual way he said it sent chills down her spine. This beautiful, elegant creature was also a predator who'd probably killed more people than she could imagine. And now she was bound to him by ancient magic and vampire law. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Good. Fear will keep you sharp. Vaelrath crossed to her, reaching up to adjust the crown slightly. His fingers brushed her hair, cold and careful. But you should know something, Juliet Harmon. I will protect you. Not just because the law demands it, but because you did something tonight that I haven't seen in centuries. You reminded me why we wrote those old laws about honor and sacrifice in the first place. The vampire world has become stagnant, ruled by politics and power games. Perhaps a human queen is exactly what we need. His face was very close to hers now, those red eyes burning with intensity. Juliet's breath caught. He was terrifying and beautiful and completely inhuman, and she was acutely aware that she should be running, screaming, doing anything except standing here letting him touch her. I won't be anyone's puppet, she said, forcing steel into her voice. If I'm queen, then I make my own decisions. Vaelrath's smile was slow and approving. I would expect nothing less. A weak queen is useless. I need someone strong enough to stand beside me, not behind me. A knock at the door interrupted them. Vaelrath stepped back smoothly, calling permission to enter. A vampire woman swept in, arms loaded with elegant gowns in midnight blue and deep crimson. Your Majesty, the woman said, curtsying to Juliet, I'm Seraphina, the palace wardrobe mistress. I've brought selections for you to choose from. Juliet spent the next hour being dressed like a doll, Seraphina and her assistants fussing over every detail. They settled on a gown of midnight blue silk that made her eyes look luminous, with silver embroidery that caught the light when she moved. Her hair was rearranged to accommodate the crown, auburn waves falling in an elegant cascade down her back. Someone painted her lips dark red and lined her eyes with kohl. When she finally looked in the mirror, Juliet barely recognized herself. She looked like royalty, powerful and beautiful and completely out of her depth. Vaelrath was waiting when she emerged from the queen's chambers. His expression shifted when he saw her, something flickering in those crimson eyes that she couldn't quite read. You look the part now, he said quietly. Ready to meet your sister? Juliet nodded, not trusting her voice. Together they walked through the palace corridors, vampires bowing as they passed. Juliet tried to hold her head high to look confident, but inside she was still that desperate thief who'd broken into a place she didn't belong. The medical wing was surprisingly modern, all white tile and gleaming equipment. Mara was already there, lying in a bed surrounded by monitors. She looked tiny and fragile, her skin pale against the white sheets. Dark circles shadowed her eyes and her breathing seemed labored. Mara! Juliet rushed to her sister's side, taking her hand carefully. It felt too thin, too cold. Mara's eyes fluttered open. Jules, where am I? These people came and said there was a treatment, but I don't understand. She stopped, seeing the crown on Juliet's head. What's happening? It's a long story, Juliet said, tears streaming down her face. But you're going to be okay. They can help you here. They have medicine that can cure you. Who are they? Mara's gaze shifted to Vaelrath standing in the doorway. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, you're Lord Vaelrath. I've seen you on the news. You're the Vampire King. She looked back at Juliet, panicked. Jules, what did you do? I saved you, Juliet said simply. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs me, I saved you. A vampire doctor entered, a severe-looking woman with platinum hair and kind eyes. Your Majesty. She addressed Juliet with a small bow. I'm Dr. Isadora. I've reviewed your sister's medical records. The condition is severe, but treatable with vampire blood therapy combined with specific magical healing. It will take approximately 3 weeks of daily treatment, but I'm confident we can achieve full recovery. 3 weeks? Mara whispered. The doctors said I had months at best. Human doctors have limitations we don't share, Isadora said gently. Trust me, young one. We'll have you healthy again. Juliet stayed with Mara for hours, explaining everything. The theft, the crown, Vaelrath's strange decision to make her queen. Mara listened with growing disbelief, interrupting with questions Juliet didn't have answers to. You're a vampire queen now, Mara finally said, shaking her head. My sister, who burns toast and can't balance a checkbook, is ruling the supernatural world. I don't rule anything, Juliet protested. I'm just wearing the crown until it decides I've done whatever I'm supposed to do. And then what? You just go back to bartending? Juliet realized she had no idea. She hadn't thought past saving Mara. The future was a blank space filled with uncertainty. Rest now, she told her sister. Let them help you. We'll figure out everything else later. When she finally emerged from the medical wing, dawn was approaching. Vaelrath was waiting in the corridor, looking as fresh and perfect as he had hours ago. Vampires didn't get tired, apparently. Your sister will recover, he said. It wasn't a question. Dr. Isadora seems confident. Juliet felt exhausted down to her bones. The crown suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. I need to sleep. Of course. I'll show you to your chambers. He led her back through the palace, past windows that were already being covered with heavy shutters to block out the coming sun. Vampires moved through the corridors with purpose, securing their underground city against the day. Do you ever miss it? Juliet asked. The sun? Vaelrath's expression turned distant. I was born in 1624, in a small village in what's now Romania. I remember the sun, yes, the warmth of it. But I've been vampire far longer than I was ever human. The night is my home now. Do you regret it? Becoming vampire? Every day and never, he said quietly. I've lived through centuries, seen empires rise and fall. I've accumulated knowledge and power beyond imagining. But I've also watched everyone I ever loved die. My human family is dust. The woman I planned to marry died of plague 400 years ago. Immortality is a gift and a curse. They reached the queen's chambers. Vaelrath opened the door for her but didn't enter. Sleep, he said. Tonight you'll meet the full council. They'll want to see their new queen. Will they challenge me? Some will try, let them. His smile was sharp and dangerous. It will be educational for everyone involved. Juliet stepped into her new chambers, then turned back. Vaelrath? Thank you for saving Mara, for not killing me, for whatever this is. Thank me when we see if you survive the week, he said, but his tone was almost gentle. Sleep well, my queen. The door closed, leaving Juliet alone in the vast suite. She kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto a bed that felt like clouds. The crown was still on her head. She should probably remove it, but she was too tired to figure out how. Within seconds she was asleep. She woke to darkness and the sound of voices arguing in the next room. For a moment Juliet didn't remember where she was. Then she sat up, feeling the crown's weight, and everything came rushing back. She'd slept for 12 hours. The sun had set again, and the vampire world was awake. Climbing out of bed, still wearing the wrinkled ball gown she'd stolen last night, Juliet followed the voices to the library connecting her chambers to Vaelrath's. She found him surrounded by several vampires, all of them talking at once. This is madness, a male vampire was saying. He was older looking than Vaelrath, with bone-white hair and eyes like black ice. A human queen? The crown has malfunctioned. The crown doesn't malfunction, Vaelrath replied coolly. It chose her. Our law is clear. Then the law needs changing, a female vampire snapped. She was beautiful and cruel-looking with blood-red lips. She's prey, not royalty. Careful, Morgana. Vaelrath's voice dropped to something deadly. That prey is your queen. Show respect or leave my presence. Juliet stepped into the room fully, and every vampire turned to stare at her. She could feel their hostility, their confusion, their hunger. They looked at her and saw food, weakness, something to be used or destroyed. She lifted her chin and met their gazes steadily. I'm Juliet Harmon. Your king crowned me last night, and I accepted. If anyone has a problem with that, address it now. The older male vampire laughed. Address it, child. I am Lord Constantine of the Eastern Court. I've existed for 7 centuries. You've been alive for what, 2 decades? You know nothing of our world, our laws, our ways. The crown made a mistake. Then challenge me properly, Juliet said, remembering something Vaelrath had mentioned. Isn't that how vampire disputes are settled? Through formal challenge? Constantine's black eyes gleamed. Careful what you invoke, little human. A formal challenge ends in blood. Not necessarily, Vaelrath interjected smoothly. He moved to stand beside Juliet and she felt his cold presence like armor. Challenges can take many forms. Combat, yes, but also contests of wit, strategy, or will. I believe our new queen would surprise you, Constantine. I doubt that very much. Constantine stepped closer, and Juliet fought not to flinch. He radiated age and power. But very well, if she wants to play at being queen, let's make it official. I challenge Juliet Harmon for the crown of first blood. We'll settle this the traditional way. Combat is unacceptable, Vaelrath said flatly. She's untrained, then a contest of will. Constantine's smile was vicious. Ancient vampire magic. If she can withstand my compulsion for 60 seconds, I'll accept her as queen. If she breaks, the crown passes to someone more worthy. Juliet's stomach dropped. She'd heard about vampire compulsion. The ability to dominate human minds, make them do anything. She had no defenses against that. This is ridiculous, she started to say. I accept on her behalf, Vaelrath interrupted. But with conditions. The contest happens at tomorrow's coronation ceremony, before the full court, and if she succeeds, Constantine, you will pledge absolute loyalty to her for the next century. Constantine considered this, then nodded. Agreed. And if she fails, you'll admit the crown erred and find a more suitable queen. If she fails, we'll discuss it. But she won't fail. Vaelrath's confidence was absolute. After the other vampires left, Juliet rounded on him. What did you just agree to? I can't resist vampire compulsion. I'm human. You're human wearing the crown of first blood, Vaelrath corrected. The crown offers protection to its wearer. Ancient magic that shields against mental domination. You'll feel Constantine's compulsion, but it can't force you to act against your will. You could have mentioned that earlier. Where's the fun in that? He smiled slightly. Besides, you needed to look uncertain. Constantine would have grown suspicious if you'd accepted too easily. Now he thinks he has an easy victory. He'll be careless. Juliet sank into a chair, her head spinning. This is insane. Yesterday I was a bartender. Today I'm playing political games with centuries-old vampires. You're doing well, actually. Vaelrath sat across from her, his red eyes thoughtful. You didn't panic, didn't back down. Most humans would have been paralyzed with fear in a room full of predators. But you stood your ground. I was terrified. I know, I could hear your heartbeat. His gaze intensified. But you acted anyway. That's courage. Real courage isn't the absence of fear, Juliet. It's moving forward despite it. Something in his voice made her look up. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Not hunger, not exactly. Something more complicated. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. You could have just killed me for stealing the crown, or let your guards deal with me. Why make me queen? Vaelrath was silent for a long moment. Because I've been alone for a very long time, he finally said. Kings have advisors, subjects, servants, but no true equals. The last queen died before I even took the throne. I've ruled solo for 4 centuries and it's made me. He paused, searching for words. Cold, distant. I've forgotten what it means to care about anything beyond power and duty. And you think I can help with that? I think you already have. He stood, moving to the window. The underground city glittered below, eternal night. You risked everything for love, pure, selfless love. I haven't felt anything like that in so long I'd forgotten it existed. When I saw you standing there with the crown hidden in your skirts, your heart racing, your eyes full of desperate hope, I remembered what it was like to be human, to care about something more than political games. Juliet didn't know what to say to that. This ancient, powerful vampire king was lonely, isolated by his own immortality and power. I'm not going to fix you, she said gently. I'm not some magical cure for centuries of pain. I know. Vaelrath turned back to her. But perhaps we can help each other. You need protection, resources, knowledge. I need something I can't quite name. Purpose, maybe. Or just someone who sees me as more than a crown and throne. I see a man who's trying to do the right thing, Juliet offered. Even if he's forgotten why that matters. His smile was sad and ancient. You see better than most, then. Come, we have work to do. If you're going to pass Constantine's challenge tomorrow, you need to understand how the crown's magic works. They spent the rest of the night in the palace library. Vaelrath teaching her about vampire law, court politics, and the ancient magic woven into the crown of first blood. He explained how the crown created a bond between ruler and realm, how it channeled power from the vampire collective into its wearer. You'll feel Constantine's compulsion as pressure, he explained, like someone pushing against your mind. The crown will shield you, but you have to maintain your will. Don't fight it actively, that will exhaust you. Just exist in your own truth. Remember who you are and why you're here. My sister, Juliet said immediately. I'm here because Mara needs me. Exactly, hold on to that. Love is the strongest defense against vampire compulsion. It grounds you in what matters. They worked until dawn again, and Juliet found herself fascinated despite her exhaustion. The vampire world was complex, layered with centuries of tradition and magic. Vaelrath was a patient teacher, answering her endless questions with something approaching warmth. You're enjoying this, she accused at one point. I am, he admitted. Teaching you, I mean. Most vampires I interact with know all this already, or pretend to. You're genuinely curious, it's refreshing. I'm a bartender from Brooklyn. Everything about this world is new to me. You're a queen now, Vaelrath corrected gently. Brooklyn bartender is your past. This is your present. Juliet wanted to argue, but she couldn't deny the truth. The moment she'd put on that crown, her old life had ended. She could never go back to normal now. The coronation ceremony was scheduled for midnight the following night. Juliet spent the day visiting Mara, who was already looking healthier after just 2 blood therapy treatments. Her color had improved, and she could sit up without gasping. You look terrified, Mara observed. What's happening tonight? Juliet explained about Constantine's challenge. Mara listened with growing alarm. Can you back out? Not without losing the crown. And if I lose the crown, we lose access to your treatment. Jules, I don't want you dying for me. I'm not going to die. Vaelrath says the crown will protect me. You're trusting a vampire. Mara's expression was skeptical. A vampire king, no less. They're predators, Jules. Don't forget that. He's been kind to me, Juliet protested. He could have killed me. Instead, he made me queen. Why, though? What does he get out of it? Juliet didn't have a good answer for that. She'd wondered the same thing. Vaelrath claimed he was lonely, that he needed an equal, but was that the whole truth? Or was there some deeper game she didn't understand yet? I don't know, she admitted, but I don't have much choice. This is my reality now. Mara squeezed her hand. Just be careful. Promise me that. I promise. The coronation ceremony took place in the Grand Hall, the same room where Juliet had stolen the crown 2 nights ago. Now it was packed with vampires from courts around the world. Hundreds of them, all dressed in elaborate finery, their white skin and pale hair making them look like beautiful ghosts. Juliet wore a gown of deep crimson, the color of fresh blood. Serafina had insisted it was traditional for vampire queens. The crown of first blood gleamed on her head, its rubies catching the chandelier light. She felt exposed, vulnerable, standing before so many predators. Vaelrath stood beside her on the raised dais, regal in black and silver. He'd explained the ceremony earlier. Formal oaths, traditional rituals, and then Constantine's challenge. If she passed, she would be recognized as true queen by all the courts. If she failed, well, he'd been vague about that part. The ceremony began with ancient words in languages Juliet didn't recognize. Vampires came forward to swear fealty, kneeling before her with varying degrees of sincerity. Some looked respectful, most looked skeptical or hostile. A human queen was clearly an aberration. Then Constantine stepped forward, flanked by 2 other ancient vampires. He looked supremely confident. Lord Vaelrath, he said formally, I invoke the right of challenge. This human wears the crown, but she has not proven herself worthy. I challenge her to withstand my will for 60 seconds. If she succeeds, I will accept her as queen. If she fails, the crown must choose another. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vaelrath's expression was cold and controlled. The challenge is witnessed and accepted, he declared. Begin. Constantine's black eyes locked onto Juliet's. She felt the compulsion hit her immediately, a crushing pressure against her mind. It felt like drowning, like being buried alive. Every instinct screamed at her to submit, to fall to her knees and beg for mercy. The crown flared hot against her scalp. Magic surged through her, pushing back against Constantine's assault. She remembered Vaelrath's words. Don't fight actively. Just exist in your truth. Juliet thought of Mara, her sister's smile, her laugh, the way she used to braid Juliet's hair when they were children. She thought of growing up together, protecting each other, loving each other through every hardship. That love was real. It was her foundation, her truth. Constantine's compulsion intensified. She could feel him trying to make her kneel, to acknowledge him as superior. The pressure was unbearable, but beneath it, the crown's magic held steady. An unbreakable shield forged from ancient power. Juliet met Constantine's eyes and spoke clearly. No. The single word resonated through the hall. Constantine's expression flickered with surprise. He pushed harder and Juliet felt blood trickle from her nose. The strain was immense, but she held firm, rooted in love and stubbornness. 30 seconds, Vaelrath announced, his voice cutting through the tension. Constantine snarled, dropping any pretense of control. His compulsion became a battering ram, trying to shatter her will completely. Juliet's vision blurred, her knees buckled, but she didn't fall. The crown blazed with ruby light, protecting her. 45 seconds. Almost there. Juliet could feel Constantine's frustration growing. He was one of the oldest vampires alive, and a human was resisting him. It was humiliating for him, dangerous for her. 60 seconds. The challenge is complete. Constantine's compulsion released abruptly. Juliet gasped, nearly collapsing. Vaelrath caught her elbow, steadying her. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. She passed, Vaelrath declared, his voice carrying absolute authority. Juliet Harmon has withstood the challenge. The crown's choice is validated. All will show proper respect to your queen. Constantine looked like he wanted to object, but vampire law was clear. He'd lost. Stiffly, he dropped to one knee. I pledge loyalty to Queen Juliet, he gritted out. For the next century, my service is yours. The other vampires followed suit, kneeling in waves until the entire hall was bowed before her. Juliet stood there, blood still dripping from her nose, and felt the weight of centuries pressing down on her shoulders. She was really queen now. There was no going back. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. When it finally ended, Juliet retreated to her chambers, exhausted and overwhelmed. Vaelrath followed her, carrying a glass of wine. Drink, he commanded gently. You're shaking. Juliet downed the wine in 3 gulps. It was rich and heavy, probably worth more than her monthly rent used to be. I thought I was going to break, she admitted. At the end, when Constantine really pushed, I could feel myself starting to crack. But you didn't. Vaelrath sat beside her, his cold presence oddly comforting. You held firm. You impressed a lot of vampires tonight, Juliet. Constantine is 700 years old and powerful. Most humans would have shattered in seconds against his compulsion. You lasted the full minute and barely showed strain. I showed plenty of strain. I'm pretty sure I was bleeding. A little blood is expected. He produced a handkerchief, gently wiping her face. His touch was careful, almost tender. You did well. I'm proud of you. The words hit her unexpectedly hard. When was the last time anyone had said they were proud of her? Juliet found herself blinking back tears. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. For believing I could do this. I knew you could. Vaelrath's thumb brushed her cheekbone, cold against her flushed skin. You have a strength in you, Juliet. It's not physical or magical. It's something deeper. The kind of strength that survives when everything else fails. They were sitting very close now. Juliet could see details in his face that she'd missed before. Tiny lines around his eyes that suggested he'd smiled often in his human life. A small scar on his chin that hadn't healed when he transformed. The way his white hair caught the light like silver thread. He was beautiful, inhumanly so, and dangerous. But in that moment, Juliet felt safer with him than she had in years. I should go, Vaelrath said quietly, but he didn't move. Stay, Juliet heard herself say. Just for a while. I don't want to be alone right now. Something shifted in his expression. That's not wise. You're exhausted and emotional. I'm a vampire who hasn't fed properly in days. Being close to you right now is dangerous, Juliet finished. I know, but I trust you. You shouldn't. But he stayed anyway, keeping careful distance between them. Tell me about your life before all this. So Juliet talked. She told him about growing up with Mara, their parents dying when she was 19, working 3 jobs to keep them afloat. She talked about her tiny apartment, her terrible car, the dive bar where she'd worked for 5 years. Small, ordinary things that probably seemed impossibly trivial to someone who'd lived for centuries. But Vaelrath listened intently, asking him questions, seeming genuinely interested. And slowly Juliet began to understand something. He was lonely. Truly, desperately lonely. Surrounded by subjects and servants, but without anyone who saw him as simply a person. What about you? She asked eventually. What was your human life like? Vaelrath's expression turned distant. Simple. I was a merchant's son. Nothing special. I was engaged to a girl named Eliza. We planned to marry in the spring, he paused. Then plague came to our village. I was dying. Everyone was dying. A vampire named Lucian offered me a choice, death or immortality. I chose immortality. What happened to Eliza? She died 3 days later. I couldn't save her. His voice was hollow. I've spent 400 years wondering if I made the right choice. Becoming vampire gave me power, time, knowledge. But I lost everything I actually cared about. I'm sorry, Juliet said softly. It was a long time ago. But his eyes betrayed the lie. 400 years wasn't long enough to stop grieving someone you loved. They talked until dawn, sharing stories and silences. When the sun rose, Vaelrath finally stood to leave. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we begin your real training. Being queen isn't just ceremonies and challenges. There's work to be done. What kind of work? The kind that actually matters. Vampire-human relations have been strained for years. We need to rebuild trust, create better systems. You're uniquely positioned to help with that, being human yourself. You want me to be a bridge between our worlds. I want you to be a queen, Vaelrath corrected. In the truest sense. Not just a symbol, but someone who actually makes a difference. Can you do that? Juliet thought about it. She'd stolen the crown to save her sister, but maybe there was more she could do. More people she could help. I can try, she said. His smile was warm, genuine. That's all I ask. The next weeks fell into a pattern. Juliet spent mornings with Mara, watching her sister grow stronger each day. The vampire blood therapy was working miracles. Color returned to Mara's cheeks. She could walk, laugh, be herself again. Dr. Isadora predicted full recovery within another week. Afternoons, Juliet worked with Vaelrath and his council, learning about vampire governance. She was shocked by how complex it was. The vampire world had laws covering everything from blood acquisition to territorial disputes to interaction with humans. There were entire departments devoted to maintaining secrecy, managing vampire-owned businesses, and handling rogue vampires who broke their laws. We're not monsters, Vaelrath explained one day. Or rather, we try not to be. Vampires who kill humans without cause are hunted down and executed. Blood must be taken consensually or through approved channels. We have blood banks, willing donors, systems in place to prevent harm. But you still drink human blood. We're predators. That's our nature. But we can be civilized predators. Humans eat meat but regulate slaughter. We drink blood but regulate the taking of it. It's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative. Juliet gradually came to understand that the vampire world was trying, in its own way, to coexist peacefully with humanity. It wasn't always successful. There were incidents, problems, conflicts. But there were also rules, consequences, efforts at justice. And Vaelrath ruled it all with a careful balance of strength and wisdom. She watched him settle disputes with the patience of centuries, saw him make hard decisions with clear-eyed practicality. He was a good king, she realized. Fair, intelligent, and genuinely concerned with the welfare of both his vampire subjects and the humans they lived among. Evenings they spent together, talking, mostly. Sometimes Vaelrath taught her to play chess. Sometimes she convinced him to watch human movies, laughing at his commentary on historical inaccuracies. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, reading in the library. Juliet was falling for him. She knew it was dangerous, probably stupid, definitely complicated. He was a vampire, an immortal predator who'd lived for centuries. But he was also kind to her, patient, surprisingly funny when he relaxed. He listened when she talked and valued her opinions. He made her feel important, capable, seen. And the way he looked at her sometimes with those burning red eyes made her heart race for entirely different reasons than fear. She wondered if he felt it too, this growing connection between them. But vampires were difficult to read, and Vaelrath kept himself carefully controlled around her. 3 weeks after she'd stolen the crown, Mara was declared fully healed. Dr. Isadora ran every test imaginable and found nothing wrong. The blood disease was gone, erased by vampire medicine. I can go home, Mara said, lying in her hospital bed. Back to my life, if that's what you want, Juliet said carefully. Though you're welcome to stay here. The palace has plenty of room. In the vampire city? Mara shook her head. Jules, this is your world now, not mine. I love you, and I'm grateful for everything you've done. But I don't belong here. Juliet understood. Mara wanted normalcy, humanity, daylight, all the things Juliet had given up. I'll set you up with money, she said. Enough that you never have to worry again. You can go back to school, get that degree you wanted. You're really staying then? Being queen? I don't think I have a choice anymore. Juliet touched the crown, still ever present on her head. It chose me. And honestly, I think I'm doing good here. Vaelrath and I have been working on new policies. Better protection for human blood donors, stricter punishment for rogue vampires. We're making a difference. You sound like you care about this. Mara studied her sister closely. About the vampire world. I do. It's not what I expected, but it matters. These are real people, Mara. Immortal. Yes, dangerous, yes. But they're trying to build something better. I want to help with that. And Vaelrath? Mara's voice was careful. You care about him too, don't you? Juliet felt heat rise to her cheeks. It's complicated. I've seen how he looks at you, Jules. Like you're the only thing that exists. That vampire is in love with you. That's ridiculous. We barely know each other. You've spent every night together for 3 weeks. You've fought for this crown, learned his world, become his partner in ruling. That's more than most couples do in years. Mara squeezed her hand. I just want you to be happy. If he makes you happy, don't let him being a vampire stop you. What kind of future could we have? He's immortal. I'm not. So become immortal, Mara said simply. If you want to. If it's worth it to you. Juliet had been avoiding that thought. The idea of becoming vampire terrified her. Giving up sunlight, becoming a predator, living forever, it seemed impossible. But staying human meant growing old while Vaelrath remained unchanged. It meant dying while he continued on without her. If she loved him, and if he loved her, did either option work? She was still wrestling with these thoughts that night when Vaelrath knocked on her chamber door. "I heard your sister is leaving," he said when she let him in. "Are you all right?" "I'm happy she's well. That was the whole point of this." Juliet gestured vaguely. "But I'll miss her. You could go with her if you wanted." Vaelrath's voice was carefully neutral. "You've passed the coronation challenge. Technically, you could step down as queen now. The crown would simply find another candidate." Juliet stared at him. "Is that what you want, for me to leave?" "No," the word came out sharp, almost pained. "But I won't trap you here if you're unhappy. You didn't ask for this life, Juliet. You stole a crown to save your sister. That mission is accomplished. You're free. And if I don't want to be free?" She moved closer to him. "If I want to stay?" Vaelrath's crimson eyes blazed. "Why would you want that?" "Because I care about this work. I care about making things better for humans and vampires. I care about justice and doing the right thing." She took a breath. "And I care about you." The silence stretched between them, charged with tension. "You shouldn't," Vaelrath finally said, his voice rough. "I'm a vampire, Juliet. A predator. I've killed people, done terrible things. I'll exist for centuries while you age and die. There's no future in caring about me. Then turn me." The words were out before she could stop them. "Make me vampire, give me centuries too." "No." Vaelrath turned away sharply. "I won't do that." "Why not?" "Because I did that once before." His control finally cracked, centuries of pain spilling out. "There was a woman 200 years ago, a human I cared for. She begged me to turn her so we could be together forever." I agreed. "And do you know what happened? She hated it. Hated being vampire, hated feeding on blood, hated the darkness. She grew to hate me for changing her. Eventually she walked into the sun and burned to ash." Juliet's heart broke for him. "I'm not her. How can you possibly know that? You've been in this world for 3 weeks. You have no idea what eternity actually means. The weight of it, the loneliness, the slow erosion of everything that makes you human." He faced her again and his eyes were anguished. "I won't risk doing that to you. I won't watch you learn to hate what you've become. So what, we just ignore this connection between us? Pretend we don't feel anything? What I feel doesn't matter. Protecting you does." Juliet wanted to argue, to convince him he was wrong. But she could see the centuries of pain in his expression, the bone-deep fear of losing someone else. He'd loved before and it had destroyed him. He wasn't ready to risk that again. "Okay," she said quietly. "I won't push, but I'm not leaving either. I'm staying as queen, helping you rule. If that's all we can have, I'll accept it." Vaelrath looked like he wanted to say more, but just nodded stiffly and left. The next weeks were strained. They worked together during council meetings, maintained their public partnership, but the easy intimacy they'd developed was gone. Vaelrath kept careful distance, never staying alone with her longer than necessary. It hurt, but Juliet understood why. He was protecting them both from something that seemed impossible. Then everything changed the night Lord Ravenna attacked. Ravenna was an ancient vampire from the European courts, nearly 1,000 years old. She'd opposed Juliet's coronation from the start, and apparently she'd been planning something in the shadows. The attack came during a formal dinner with visiting vampire dignitaries. Juliet was mid-conversation when the lights suddenly went out. In the darkness she heard screams, the clash of weapons, Vaelrath shouting orders, then cold hands grabbed her, yanking her backward. Juliet screamed, fighting, but vampire strength was overwhelming. She felt herself being dragged through corridors, away from the dining hall. "The false queen," a woman's voice hissed. "Ravenna, you've made a mockery of our traditions. Time to remove you from the throne." Juliet felt the bite coming, Ravenna's fangs approaching her throat. This was it. She was going to die. After everything, she'd be killed by a vampire who hated what she represented. Then Ravenna was suddenly gone, ripped away with brutal force. Juliet hit the ground hard, gasping. When her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw Vaelrath holding Ravenna by the throat, his face transformed into something inhuman and terrifying. His fangs were fully extended, eyes blazing with fury. "You touched my queen," he snarled. "You die for that. She's human," Ravenna choked out. "An abomination. The crown should never have chosen." Vaelrath didn't let her finish. His hand clenched and Ravenna's neck snapped with a sickening crack. He held her body for a moment, then dropped it contemptuously. Other vampires were flooding the corridor now, guards and council members. They stared at Ravenna's corpse in shock. "Let this be a lesson," Vaelrath announced, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Anyone who threatens Queen Juliet threatens me directly. The punishment is death. No exceptions, no mercy." He turned to Juliet, his monstrous features softening instantly. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay. Shaken, but okay." She stood on trembling legs. "You killed her. I would kill anyone who tried to harm you." He said it simply. like it was the most obvious truth in the world. Your mind to protect. The possessiveness in his voice sent shivers through her. This wasn't the controlled, careful Vaelrath she'd grown used to. This was the Vampire King in his full power, protective and deadly and utterly devoted. The rest of the night passed in chaos. Investigations, interrogations, discovering that Ravenna had planned a coup with several other vampires who opposed human-vampire integration. They were all arrested or executed. Vaelrath was merciless, and Juliet watched him rule with iron authority. When it was finally over, near dawn they were alone in his chambers. Juliet was still wearing her torn dinner gown, dried blood on her throat where Ravenna had nearly bitten her. "Let me clean that," Vaelrath said, his voice gentle again. He dampened a cloth and carefully wiped the blood away. His hands shook slightly. "You were terrified," Juliet realized. "When Ravenna took me, beyond terrified, I thought I'd lost you." His red eyes met hers, raw with emotion. "I've existed for 400 years, Juliet. I've faced wars, plagues, enemies beyond counting. Nothing has ever scared me the way seeing you in danger tonight did." "Why?" she whispered, though she thought she knew. "Because I love you." The words hung in the air between them. "I've been fighting it for weeks, telling myself it was impossible, dangerous, wrong. But tonight, when I thought Ravenna might kill you, I realized the truth. I'm in love with you. Desperately, completely, irrevocably in love with you." Juliet's heart soared. "I love you too. I have for weeks. You shouldn't. I'm a vampire. Immortal. Dangerous. Yes, I know. I don't care." She cupped his face in her hands, feeling cold skin and centuries of loneliness. "I love you, Vaelrath. Not despite what you are, but including it. All of it. You'll age, die, leave me alone again, then turn me, make me vampire. Let me stay with you. I'm terrified of that, of watching you learn to hate it. I won't." Juliet knew she couldn't promise that with certainty, but she meant it with every fiber of her being. "I've found my place here, Vaelrath. This world, these responsibilities I don't want to give any of it up. I want forever with you. However complicated and difficult that might be." Vaelrath closed his eyes, clearly wrestling with himself. "If I do this, there's no going back. Vampire transformation is permanent. You'll never see sunlight again. Never be fully human again. I know. I'm choosing this. Choosing you." He opened his eyes and they burned with intensity. "Then I'll turn you. But not tonight. You need time to truly understand what you're giving up. Spend one more month as human. Experience everything you'll be leaving behind. If you still want this at the end of that month, I'll transform you." It was fair, more than fair. 1 month, Juliet agreed. "And then forever." Vaelrath kissed her then, finally closing the distance between them. His lips were cold but gentle, and the kiss tasted of centuries and new beginnings. Juliet melted into him, feeling safe and wanted and loved. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "You're absolutely certain?" "Completely." "Then we'll do this properly. A royal transformation, before the full court. You'll become not just vampire but vampire queen in truth. Equal to me in every way." The next month was the strangest of Juliet's life. She spent her days soaking up human experiences. She visited Mara in her new apartment, spending time in the sunlight. She ate her favorite foods, knowing she'd never taste them the same way again. She said goodbye to her old life piece by piece. Nights, she spent with Vaelrath. They grew closer, learning each other completely. He told her stories of his long life, the good and the terrible. She shared her dreams, her fears, her hopes for their future. They worked together on vampire-human relations, creating new policies and systems. They were partners in every sense, and it felt right. On the final night of her month as human, Juliet stood in the grand hall before the entire vampire court. She wore a gown of midnight black, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders. The crown of first blood gleamed on her head. Vaelrath stood before her, regal in crimson and black. "Juliet Harmon," he said formally, "you have chosen to join our kind, to become vampire and reign as true queen. Do you make this choice freely, understanding all it entails?" "I do," Juliet said clearly. "I choose this life, this world, and you. Forever, then I will transform you." Vaelrath pulled a ceremonial dagger from his belt, slicing his palm. Blood welled up, dark and rich. "Drink and be reborn." Juliet pressed her mouth to his palm, tasting vampire blood for the first time. It was cold and strange, but as she swallowed, she felt power flood through her. Ancient magic, vampire essence, immortality itself. Vaelrath pulled her close, whispering, "This will hurt. I'm sorry." Then his fangs sank into her throat and the world exploded into pain and transformation. Juliet felt her humanity burning away, replaced by something new and powerful. Her heart slowed, stopped, then started again with a different rhythm. Her senses sharpened impossibly. She could hear everything, smell everything, feel the magic in the air. When Vaelrath finally released her, Juliet collapsed. He caught her, holding her as the transformation completed itself. It felt like dying and being reborn simultaneously. Every cell in her body was changing, rewriting itself, and then it was done. Juliet opened her eyes and saw the world in a completely new way. Colors were sharper, sounds clearer. She could hear the heartbeats of every human servant in the palace, smell the blood in their veins. But it didn't repulse her. It was simply information like sight or sound. She looked at Vaelrath and saw him truly for the first time. His power, his age, his love for her radiating like light. He was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. "How do you feel?" he asked quietly. Juliet took stock, strong, powerful, different but not wrong. "I feel like myself. Just more." Relief flooded his expression. "No regrets? None whatsoever." She stood, and the movement felt effortless, graceful in a way she'd never experienced as human. Looking around the hall, she saw the entire vampire court watching her. "Well, someone should probably tell them I survived the transformation." Vaelrath laughed, a sound of pure joy. He pulled her close and announced to the court, "Your queen has been reborn. Juliet Harmon is vampire, immortal, and true ruler alongside me. All hail the vampire queen." The hall erupted in cheers and applause. Vampires who'd been skeptical of her humanity were now celebrating her transformation. She was one of them now, proven and powerful. But more importantly, she was with Vaelrath. Forever the coronation celebration lasted until dawn. Juliet experienced her first vampire feeding, taking blood from a willing donor who considered it an honor. It was strange but not terrible. Natural, even, like satisfying a fundamental need. When the sun rose, she felt exhaustion for the first time since transforming. Vampire tiredness was different from human, a gentle pull toward rest. Vaelrath led her to their chambers. Not the separate quarters they'd maintained before, but a shared suite prepared specifically for them, a symbol of their united rule and relationship. "Our first day together," he said, pulling her close. "Of countless days to come." "Forever," Juliet agreed, kissing him. "That's how long I want with you. You have it. Forever and always, my queen, my love." They fell into bed together as the sun climbed higher, sleeping the deep sleep of vampires in their shared darkness. When night came again, they would rise together, rule together, love together. Juliet had stolen a crown to save her sister, and in doing so she'd found her true home. Not in the human world she'd left behind, but here in the shadows with a vampire king who loved her more than immortality itself. The crown of first blood had chosen well. And as Juliet drifted into sleep, wrapped in Vaelrath's arms, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. This was her destiny, her purpose, her forever, and she was exactly where she belonged.